In this podcast, chat about the draw against Rotherham, the Morgan Rogers saga, and look ahead to Chelsea. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and this is like a Boro Matchday chatter in a pod.
Support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Ravanelli coming alive again. Janino wants the ball played to him. Ravanelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Johnny, Dana and Tom. We're a Boro podcast that gives you all of your Boro Matchday chatter in a podcast. And Boro drew against Rotherham on Saturday to see us slip a bit further away from the playoffs. But, you know, Chelsea on Tuesday. What a big game to look forward to. But let's go and get our key takeouts, obviously, from the week. Boro have now had 35 shots against Rotherham in the two games this season, and scored one. So I thought one key takeout. Dana, what's your takeout for the week?
Probably that Boro need to be stronger at the Riverside. We've actually got an identical record home and away this season, but our away form is top 5 in the league, and our home form is firmly bottom half with 16th for points accumulated at home. We're averaging 1.43 points per game, which just isn't good enough, really. If you want to be mounting a serious playoff campaign, it needs to be nearing 2 points per game at home for me. Right now, our away form is essentially what's propping us up and keeping us within touching distance of that top 6. And people could say that yesterday's game against Rotherham was one of those days and bad day at the office, but that reduces it to being a one-off. But it's not been a one-off type performance this season. We've seen it quite frequently. I was looking back at my notes, rejigging my memory of previous games. Millwall, first game of the season, was poor. You could kind of maybe give them a little bit of leeway there because it's the first game of the season. But QPR, we were abysmal. Stoke, that was after we got our season on track. We reverted back to our early season performances. We were really poor. Hull started well, got progressively worse in performance level, didn't take our chances. And honestly, the only home league games that I can say that confidently that Boro have played well in was the win over West Brom, the win over Preston, but they were shite, so does that really count? And then the first half against Coventry, but that's one half of football. So, the others have just been either good enough to get the result or poor. So Boro really need to step up at home, particularly against teams that adopt that low block and really try to frustrate us, because more times than not, it seems like they're succeeding in their game plan.
I would probably put Leicester in that one as well. I'd say Leicester win was
defensively,
yeah, defensively good enough, yeah, just enough. But I echo those thoughts. I was going to say painful at home was probably my kind of takeout. I think this season's been up and down. At home, I mean, the chips and gravy from the chip fans been fantastic, So I've enjoyed those
there yesterday.
moments.
There was no chips. There was no curry. He was there, but there was no curry sauce. I had to get gravy. I've had to go to Burger King.
I saw people ordering curry sauce on like the meat and chips before you got there, Dana. So they must have had the last of it.
It's too late.
It's a waste on meat and chips as well.
Honestly. It's disgusting. But I was going to say, apart from the chips and gravy, we are very inconsistent at home. We need to find a way to get past these teams who are coming to sit. And it was a big theme when we were under Karanga, where teams would come to Riverside and really frustrate. And we'll talk about it in just a moment. But yeah, I think mine was kind of the frustration element of it, because I know how good we can be, just sometimes we don't really show it. But Tom, what's your welcome back, of course. And what's your key takeout?
Yeah, I mean, my key takeout's nowhere near as in-depth as what's just been mentioned there, although I agree with all of it. I was thinking specifically about that game yesterday. I was just thinking, serves me right for, looking forward to going to the Riverside on Saturday and watching that match, because, all week I was just like, right, we've got that win against Millwall. We're starting to look a little bit more like a complete team now. I expect us to beat Rotherham at home, and then obviously Rotherham turn up and don't want to play football, which, I mean, the result is, it's kind of the only little bit of credit I can give them, because if you're down in that position, you're going to want to get points as much as you can, and do anything you can to get them. But I mean, they were awful yesterday. I think they were possibly the worst team I've seen at Riverside this season. I watched early season Boro, so that is saying something. And it obviously wasn't helped as well by some really, really weak officiating by Darren Bond yesterday. Just absolutely pathetic, to be honest. So he was just going to let him get away with it the entire game anyway, and had no interest in making any big calls or anything like that. It just looked like he just wanted to avoid any kind of drama, but still ended up involved in drama from what he did anyway. So that wasn't fun. It wasn't a fun game to watch. I kind of knew within the first 20 minutes, Rotherham just kind of coming here to frustrate and sit deep and hopefully nick one on the counter. I mean, I didn't expect us to get an equaliser, because at 1-0, I just thought they're just going to be doing even more of what they've been doing all game, sitting low. They've got something to hold on to now. They'll be falling over at any bit of contact like they have been all game, and that's probably it. And I did well to get the equaliser, and arguably should have won it as well. But yeah, from what I was expecting to see on Saturday this week, like I say, serves me right for hoping for an entertaining game at the Riverside, and being served up that shite instead.
Well, you weren't served up shite at the van. You got your meat, chips, and gravy, which I feel like I've created a monster here, Tom. You've had. I've
well,
opened Pandora's
you know
box a
what,
little
Johnny? It's absolutely fantastic food, and I'd pay that £6 for a burger or something in the concourse anyway. So just thought I may as well start going to the Mackin van and possibly see you there. I think I just missed Dana by about 5 minutes yesterday. So
yeah, we're all like a little burst together, it seems. The queue was big yesterday as well. I feel like it's catching on. People have noticed, and the word's getting out about it. So
on the leeway, everyone. It's on the leeway.
I don't say it, Dana. God, I'm trying to keep it.
Serious big queue energy going on for the next few weeks.
Trying to gatekeep the burger van. Johnny's like, stay away, it's ours.
It's shite, you don't want to go. Anyway, we'll chat about Rotherham game then, because we actually need to give Rotherham the first win on the road for 30 games. When we've played Rotherham this season, I did mention at the start, we've had 35 shots and scored 1 against Rotherham, whereas they've had 3 shots and scored 2. Very, very typical Boro. Dana, how would you assess things yesterday? Tom, I'm going to come to you as well in just a moment, but Dana, it'd be good to get your overall assessment of the game.
Well, I was deliberating before the game whether to actually go, because I've been a bit poorly of late, and so has my dad. So I asked him, you sure you want to go? And he was like, oh, yeah. And he actually said, I don't want to miss us put 3 past these today, which is just well done, Dad. Aged well. But honestly, within
he loves a 3-1, though. He loves a 3-1.
Yeah, to be fair, he does. He always sticks with that, doesn't he? But, I mean, I said to you in the group chat before, it was maybe before the 30-minute mark, I'm so bored. And I was. It felt flat. I was going to say that the crowd never checked out, the crowd checked out, but I don't think they ever really checked in. It was just really, really, really flat. And with that aside, Boro did still create chances. There were openings. We were a threat from set pieces. There were 2 Matt Clark headers that one of them I thought was looping in. It unfortunately went on the other side of the post. Then you had Greenwood's shot that stung the palms of Victor Johansson. Never really thought that was going to nestle in the back of the net, but it was still a chance. And then Finn Azaz has a really, really, really big chance, and he just doesn't get the right contact on it with his left foot. He absolutely spanks it wide. But that came as a result of some really good play, some really quick, incisive play. And that was really it in regards to quick, incisive play in that game. So Boro created chances in the first half, but then in the second half, they just didn't. And it never really felt like we put them under any significant pressure, even after they scored. And to be fair, in the second half, they had a few openings. And it was particularly notable because they didn't have any in the first half. They did have that one chance with John Hugel where we kind of we played it into trouble. But then in the second half, they did have a few attacks. So when they scored, I wasn't really that surprised. But we just didn't. It wasn't a high quality game. It wasn't one that people will remember. In fact, in the first half, probably the most entertaining part of the game was when Tom Glover took a throw in, which I think tells you everything. And it was just, it just wasn't a good game at all. And in the end, I'm just glad that we didn't lose, because I think it was 26 league games Rotherham have not won. And genuinely, when they scored, I thought, that's it. Typical Boro. We've given them their first win in forever. So in the end, I'm just glad that we didn't lose. It spares our blushes ever so slightly that we didn't lose to a team that have been woeful away from home this season.
Very frustrating one as well. And Tom, you said at the start that they were the worst side you've seen at the Riverside, and the officiating was really poor. Why do you think both of those things were?
So I'll start off with the officiating. Like I said, he just didn't want to make any of the big calls. There was a huge one for a penalty in the first half, which I was down the other end of the ground, so I thought it was Johansson that had wiped out Forss in what we've just seen there. I didn't see that it was actually Revan from Rotherham's defence who had done that. That, watching that back, is an absolute stonewall penalty. And the fact that the referee just kind of pointed for a goal kick after that, I'm like, what are you playing as? But he was making bad decisions all over the place, and it wasn't even necessarily like against us. There was one where I think it was Morgan Rogers was running down the left-hand side, chasing a ball that had been played down the line. Johansson had come out trying to play a sweep the keeper, absolutely wipes Rogers out, doesn't get any of the ball. Rogers has knocked it past him. And then the referee gives our throw-in. And I'm like even I can see from the other side of the stadium that Johansson hasn't touched that. Rogers knocked it out for a throw-in. So it's either a foul, and you've got to give a foul and probably a yellow card to the goalkeeper for that challenge, which you probably just don't want to do. I think he's just trying to kind of even that out by saying, Boro throw-in, and just like carry on with the game. Rotherham, I thought, in the first 5-10 minutes, I was looking at him playing against us and thinking, these are a very physical team, to the point where most of our players are being muscled off the ball quite easily. I was thinking, if they carry on playing like this could actually be like quite an interesting game to watch, because it's going to be such a clash of styles. But I don't know what changed after that, but it just seemed to be every slight bit of contact they were hitting the deck for. And it would be, even if they challenged our players and came off worse from it, they'd just remain on the floor until the ref pulls it back. And sometimes it was positions he shouldn't have even been pulling it back from, because it wasn't even head injuries half the time. And he's just like, stop play there, and I will carry on afterwards. Horrendously weak officiating. The linesmen weren't much better, which I'm sure we will kind of discuss in a bit anyway. But yeah, I thought as a whole, the officiating team were poor. Rotherham just didn't seem to have anything about them. Like I said, though, you have to kind of credit the way they set up, and the fact that they would kind of do anything to get those points in that situation. I still don't see enough in them that makes me think they're going to stay up. Barnsley are 5th in League One at the moment, so I fully expect that they'll be doing their kind of bi-yearly switch, and Barnsley will be back in the Championship next season, and we might have to suffer going to Walkwell again. But yeah, they had nothing about them at all. There was one point where I think Boro was trying to play through the press from a goal kick, but the press never happened. Like, the Rotherham players were pretty much stood on the edge of the box, and Glover's just stood there with the ball, like, waiting for anything to happen. And they just kind of continued standing there, and it's just like, you just really don't want to break formation here, and don't want to kind of break the block that you have. So, like I say, it's credit to them the way they're set up, and they've obviously ground out a point, but in terms of the way they've played, they never looked likely to create anything. The fact that they got a goal, I think, flatters them from that game. And yeah, they just never looked like doing much going forward. So if that's the way they're going to play for the rest of the season, I'd probably fear for them if I was a Rotherham fan. But getting a draw out of that's probably good for them. But the ref was letting them get away with far too much. And I thought both linesmen were horrendous as well. there was just so much wrong with that match in terms of the officiating.
Well, I'll ask you about the goal that Rotherham scores, because obviously there's two moments in the game which is dictated by offsides. And do you think that Hugo is offsides when he receives the ball, and then they do break, and then Cafu does score? Do you think he's off there? Like it's a quite it's when you look at it in multiple frames, I'm a bit unsure, but I think he probably is just slightly off. But what do you think, Tom?
I think to the rule of the law and what VAR would see from that, they would give offside, and it's because pretty much the back half of him is stood offside. He could have made things a little bit easier for us and stood a little bit closer to where the change in the lightness and the darkness of the grass happens to make that a little bit better. Maybe if Boro's camera wasn't at an angle, maybe if we had Bristol City's Google Earth cam, we could have spotted that a little bit better. But to me, that does look offsides. I didn't see it. I didn't see it from where I was sat because I'm kind of too far away. But when Carrick mentioned it after the game, I thought that's interesting. I'm gonna have to have a look into that. And that to me is fairly clear. I don't think Fry's playing him on at all, and the linesman has missed that, which has unfortunately led to our goal. Their goal, sorry, us conceding a goal. I think in terms of that, if the linesman is given the benefit of the doubt to the attacking team, that should have happened down our end for our disallowed goal.
Yeah, and like on that clip as well, like I think I'll bring you in data on Boro's offside winner, because again, like obviously the law would say that Crooksey's interfered to some extent, but obviously, what's your thoughts on the offside? Do you think it's the right call on that one?
Well, I've looked at this over and over and over again. I think to clear things up, it's not Coburn that's marked as offside in this. It's Crooks at the near post. And I mean, Carrick said it after the game that he's level, that he's on the line, and that Coburn's obviously behind it, which is correct on Coburn's point. I think it's incredibly tight. It's Sean Morrison that's the last defender there. I think Crooks is, if we were to VAR this up, I think that Crooks would be offside. So I'm going to say, not confidently, that Crooks is offside there. Now, people say, well, he doesn't touch the ball, but looking at the rules on the FA website this morning, it says that it's an offside if there's a player clearly attempting to play a ball which is close when this action impacts on an opponent. So Crooks clearly makes a play for the ball there in what I slightly believe to be an offside position. So I think that the linesman does have that right and correct. It's really tight, but I think because Crooks, in my opinion, is just about offside and he makes a play for the ball, it interferes. It's clearly an attempt to get there that will probably impact on Sean Morrison or another Rotherham defender. So I think that is offside. I mean, at that point, I was on the edge of my seat because I thought, come on, Boro, like, get that goal. And I thought that we were going to get it. And we obviously put the ball at the back of the net. But I think that was the correct decision. I know it's controversial, maybe, because some people think that it isn't. But I'd like to know what people think. Drop a comment and we'll see what the general consensus is.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think with offside, I've always liked to favour an attacking player because it makes the game a bit more exciting. Obviously, if you're on the opposite end of it, it's not as fun. But for me, I don't think Crooks gains an advantage there. Do you know what I mean? He's fairly level, and I know obviously Coburn finishes the chance, and we'd go away and we'd be happy. But I don't know. I just think when something is that level, I think similar to probably the Hugo thing as well. I'm still a bit like, how much of an advantage does he gain there? Like, really? But it's a difficult one. I think you can kind of go on about it. But it's just a... Go on, Tom.
I was going to say, just to add on to that, I think from what I've seen after the game, there's no one who's been able to say with absolutely 100% certainty whether Crooks was offside or on. So I think with that benefit of seeing all those replays back and seeing still images and stuff like that, and it's still fairly inconclusive, how the linesman is able to make up his decision in that split second in real time that Crooks was far enough offside that he could flag is a bit bemusing, and I'm saying that as well because I'm pretty much sat in line with where that happened, and I couldn't tell whether Crooks was offside or not. So, I think that's again the officiating team just not wanting to get involved in any of the wrong sort of drama, but they've done it anyway because it was going to be dramatic one way or the other. There, I don't think the linesman had got that right because if we can't tell from stills and replays whether or not Crooks was definitely offside, then the linesman couldn't in that situation either.
Yeah, and we tried to angle it, didn't we? And put the offside lines in from on Wire Scout, and it was still like tight, and we were still unsure, like whether it was or is or isn't. And if the linesman, it depends where he's positioned as well. Like when I was officiating when I was younger, it was like always trying to stay a little bit in front of the last defender, so then you've got enough space to see behind him, and then also you'd be able to kind of understand the line. I don't know, where's he positioned? Like, has he seen Sean Morrison behind Crooks? Like, it's there's so many different things, but we don't know. We're not the linesmen, so it's a difficult one. I think it's a really difficult one. It's frustrating, but I don't think you can dwell on it too much. I think the result now, and we've got to try and move on and hopefully get some points when we're back in action in the Championship in a couple of weeks' time. But then there was a couple of like individual things that came into the game yesterday around obviously one Marcus Forss coming on and scoring again. I'm just going to give you an opportunity one more time. Surely he has to be that central striker for the time being.
Well, yeah, for the time being, absolutely, given our lack of options up front. I will say, though, that I'm not mad at Marcus Forss being played on the right generally, because I think whether he plays there or whether he plays as a number 9, he's going to make an impact. He's going to score, so long as you get him in those positions. But right now, yeah, I think he has to be playing as that number 9 because we just don't have the option. I was surprised actually when he came on yesterday and he wasn't played through the middle. I mean, there was interchange in positioning of Boro's front line, wasn't there? But there were quite a few times. I think he was mostly on the right, wasn't he, really? So it is interesting from Carrick that he's not fully committed to putting him in that number 9 position, despite having previously said after the game against Millwall that he can play there. I want to see him there more often. I'm hoping that maybe in the Chelsea game, maybe in the Sunderland game, we can see him play there. But whether he plays there or whether he plays on the right, I think Marcus Forss is good enough to make an impact and to score goals because he's a natural finisher. And I think we saw that yesterday. And also, shout out to Morgan Rogers because that was a really good piece of skill to flick back, kind of backheel it, flick it on to Marcus Forss. And yeah, really good finish, really good piece of play, and managed to get us out of jail there in the end, really, didn't they?
It did. And, we'll come on Morgan Rogers in a moment, but I want to speak about that front four as well, Tom, because what were your thoughts on it? Because it felt like it didn't really click until like the last 15, 20 minutes or so. So you had Greenwood there, you had Azaz, Rogers and Jones at the start. Obviously, Forss came on, then we moved it with Crooksy and Coburn. So what was your kind of thoughts on that front four?
I wasn't a big fan of it, to be honest. There was a few good bits of play in there, but I think for me, when Forss came on, he should have been through centrally. And the reason I'm kind of saying that is he is the best of those four. I mean, he was trained centre forward when he came into the club, but he's the best of those four at picking out attacking runs. And I feel like a lot of our better bits of play yesterday came from him making attacking runs. Obviously, we should have had a penalty off one of them. He forced a low save off Johansson on another one, ends up scoring off another one. His positioning is ideal for what we need in that central position. I don't mind seeing him on the right-hand side if we've got an actual striker playing in the number 9. So, say if, for example, we had Coburn or Latte-Laugh, I don't mind seeing Forss on the right-hand side. However, I didn't think Greenwood was offering enough in that number 9 position to justify keeping him there as well. He had that one good shot in the first half, which was obviously off a corner kick routine. But I mean, there was a point in the second half where he had the ball about 30 yards out. He had people overlapping on the right hand side. He had options, centrally and to the left if we want to go backwards. and he ends up shooting and dragging it right wide from about 30 yards out. And I'm like, what possessed you to make that decision? Like, just pass it to someone in a better position. Like, I think it was Ayling who was on the right-hand side. I'm just like, he was the pass. You give it to Ayling, he's got a clear cross into the box, and you just decide to shoot from there. He's infuriating to watch at times at the moment to me. And I think if we had made the decision to put Forss directly up front in the number 9 position when he came on, you play a three behind him of Greenwood, Azaz, and Rodgers. You know, move Rodgers over the right hand side. He's capable of doing that, and he's got the intelligence to create chances from there. I think we might have had a little bit more luck in the game. So yeah, I wasn't a big fan of it, and I can kind of see what we're trying to do with the interchange in positions, but I'd rather we just kind of like everyone knew where, going back to what we had last year, everyone knows what position everyone's going to be in when we're on the attack and transitioning. And I just think now we're trying to be fluid, but it's a little bit too fluid going forwards, and to the point where people aren't in the right positions, and I think that costs us a little bit moving forward.
Yeah, like you described positional plan, like around like just getting people in certain areas and how do you occupy space a lot better. And for me, I was going to say that first half, the front four for me, it felt very samey. It was like as Azaz and Greenwood were trying to occupy the same space. There was, when Jones went off, I thought it was a big moment in the game because he was only providing width. And then when Forss came on, it was the same thing. There was 3 or 4 players in a line in similar areas, so it was very easy for to keep that low block, and I'll come on to it in a moment. But yeah, once we changed things and we took Greenwood off and we brought Corbin and we brought Crooksy on, it just felt like it gave Rodgers more freedom to come back and go forward. It felt like we gave Forss the opportunity to stick to his position, so I agree with you on that one. And then we just looked a bit more like I had looked like a team. I had a bit more conviction about the play, because I thought the first half it was very much right. Okay, if we can't beat the lines, we'll horseshoe. We'll do the same thing again, and it made it very easy. But then, what's your thoughts on that front four yesterday? Because I know we've spoken about in the past that sometimes that interchangeability is a really good thing. You can create a lot of options and a lot of problems done, and it just didn't. Yeah, it just didn't. I agree with Tom. I just don't think it worked yesterday. What do you think?
Yeah, I've said this before. I think if you put Latte in a number 9 position and still have that fluidity, I think it could work. But the options that we had yesterday, they all want to get on the ball, and they're all going to come deep and come central to do that. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think the lack of width generally from Boro is something that I'd like to see altered. I mean, in terms of crossing, we're well down on our crosses into the box this season compared to last season. I was having a look at it before the game yesterday. Before the podcast today. 21.4 crosses per 90 last season, 15.9 crosses per 90 this season. Obviously, the sample size is much less this season because we've played less games, but it does, like from the eye test, feel like we're not crossing the ball as much. And I think that we probably needed to do that yesterday. There's just there was a lack of incisiveness that I mentioned earlier that really affected our play. And I always think it when we come up against these low block teams that you have to get your key players moving the ball quicker. You've got to get them into good positions. Sometimes that doesn't always mean centrally. Sometimes that can mean pinning a team wide and stretching them. And I just think that we were a bit one-dimensional yesterday. Everything did come quite central. As you mentioned there, Johnny, I think players were all roaming around in the same positions. So, yeah, it didn't work. And I think the sooner that we bring in a striker, or the sooner we get Latte back up to speed, or maybe bring Coburn back into the mix, I think probably the better. Although I will say with Coburn, there is a big agenda against him at the moment. I personally think that he should have been loaned out this season. I always thought that. I thought that in the summer, but he's an option. And whilst he's an option, I think we've maybe got to get him back into the mix. Obviously, he's been injured. But yeah, if we could get that number 9, that striker in there, I think that would probably bring it together a lot more, because I think I agree with Tom, it's too fluid at the moment.
Yeah, and I think with Corbin as well, like there is a big agenda on him at the moment, but I think you can be grateful for what he's done to get us to this point this season. He's contributed when it mattered. It's not always brilliant, and you can tell that he's still raw. And I agree with you, Dan. I think you should go out on loan, but he's still our player. And it's all right to think that he's not good enough, and I understand it. And it's just like, he's like our stopgap at the moment, but he's still okay. He's not like the worst football I've ever seen. I've definitely seen worse strikers than Josh Coburn play for Middlesbrough.
John Hugel.
Hugel, Caleb Forlan, lead on Goog. There's a lot worse. So you could have a long list of strikers. But for me, Coburn, yeah, I'm grateful for what he's done so far, but I do think alone is the best move for him, just to see him develop more, get more game time, play a bit more rhythm in his game. But Tom, obviously, Dana mentioned it just then around like crosses and Boro down on that. Someone who contributes to Boro's crosses quite a lot is Isaiah Jones. Appreciate he does love that low ball into the box. You can't really loft it over 5 feet from time to time. But he went off injured yesterday, and he's really important to Boro at the moment, especially when the injuries that we have. So how much do you think he'll be a miss on Tuesday if he can't play?
I think for me, I mean, he is going to be a big miss on Tuesday. Realistically thinking ahead to Tuesday, we're probably not going to play in our usual kind of setup. It's probably going to be 5-3-2 again. I don't know for sure if Aylin's cup tied. I don't know if either of you.
He can play.
No, he's not.
He can play.
No, I think he's cup tied.
I think Leeds went out early, and I don't think he played. Let's double check it.
I'm gonna double check it.
Yeah, while Dana's double checking, Tom, does your point really weigh on this?
I think that would be a miss on Tuesday, because realistically it's going to be 5-3-2. We're probably going to have a midfield three of either Barlaser, Hackney, and Howson or O'Brien. We've got our 3 centre backs, so we all know they'll be Fry, Clark, Van den Berg. We'll have Engel left wing back, and then we need a little bit kind of going forwards at right wing back. Dana's just confirmed to us on our chat that Aylin is cup tied, so it's like, who do you now play at right wing back? It's probably going to end up being Marcus Forss or something, but like I really don't. I really don't understand. Like, can't think of anyone who could play there at the moment, and that would be a bit of a worry. Maybe if Howson's fit, we play the midfield three with O'Brien and play Howson there, because he's played right back before. But that it does give a real selection headache, because it's like, who can really play there? Unless, Australia have any chance of being knocked out in the next 24 hours and Silvera can come back early and get himself in the team. I don't know where that leaves us for right wing back. But because hopefully we're going to be playing with like a front two of like, Rodgers and Forss, although that might end up being like Rodgers and Coburn with Forss right wing back. Who knows? But like I said, that does pose a real selection headache for Tuesday. Hopefully he's recovered and back in time for Sunderland. But on Tuesday, you're looking at the players who can get forward and hurt Chelsea, but also have the pace to get back. Isaiah Jones played absolute quality in that first leg, so it'd be a massive miss against them.
I think he'll be fine for Tuesday. I do. I mean, it was a really unnecessary push from Hugel, who resorted to thuggery yesterday, really, let's be honest. And I suppose when you're not a very good professional footballer, that's kind of what you reduce yourself to. But it was a really unnecessary push, and I think it might be a nerve thing in his back, maybe. I don't know how serious those are, but I think that he'll be fine. I just have a sneaking suspicion he'll be okay for Tuesday. And hopefully, because if we're going to play on the counter-attack like we are going to, most likely against Chelsea, we're going to need Isaiah Jones.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's really influential. And sometimes when you look at Boro as well, and you're thinking, oh, okay, we do need wingers to break down that low block. And I was looking yesterday, and when we look at low blocks in general, I remember when the crank we came up with it quite a lot. But just in general, I think the low blocks are very interesting, like tactic formation anyway, especially when you see a team play that 5-4-1. And when I was looking at Boro's average positions yesterday, I thought we made it really easy for them. And when you look at the way that Azaz and Greenwood and Rodgers and Jones initially they're all really together in a diagonal line, and Aylan was bringing that as well. So it was really kind of a 5v5 when we were going forward. But when you look at a low block in general, and you've got to think of what are these 3 or 4 things that you can do to really unlock that defense. And I think one is tempo. And tempo and space for me are probably the 2 biggest parts of football in general. If you get your tempo right and you're able to create a lot of space, you're able to break teams down. Your movement off the ball, too. I think we were too central at times. We became very static, and also creating overloads as well. And I was looking at like how do we, break this down. And I do enjoy positional play in general. Like when I look at like how I want to set teams up and how I want to play, I'm very, I would say, structured in some extent. I want to try and create like overloads in wider areas, but that's how I see football anyway. But for me, it was like, how do we, and if I was my coach, how do we make sure that we can bring Rodgers up to help with Hackney and Barlaser? How do we make sure that we pull players out of position, and how do we ensure that we become a bit more important in front of goal when we do play these sides? And for me, it was more of a case of if we are to do it, I would like to see Rodgers come further up the pitch, really help the midfield, try and bring a centre back out, try and create those triangles or the diamonds on the wings to get in behind, and create that space where that the between the 6-yard box and the edge of the box. That for me is like gold, because you're able to always drag the ball back and someone will be in that position centrally to score. For us, we didn't do it yesterday. We were very along the line, we essentially, when we were stood still, they were able to block the passing lanes, and then we would just go on horseshoe from side to side, when really it just needed, say, Rodgers to come up or Zaz to come up. But when everyone's so samey, they've all got the same like thoughts of, I want to impact the game in this certain way, but we just didn't really do it. So I think it's why when we did have a striker come on the pitch, it was it and strikers, and it made things a little bit better for us and a bit more impactful. But for me, yeah, that low block, it's going to be something that we're going to come up against more and more, I think, over the next few weeks. But we just need to work hard. I think work harder off the ball and be a bit more smarter in our decisions. And that is kind of it, really. And it's more on the players to do that. And I feel for Azaz in some aspect, because he's a new player adjusting to our style. And it's very difficult when the same player you got a very similar player who stood right next to you, and you can't really impact the game. But that's on Azaz, though, to come up and try and create the space elsewhere. But let's move on, because there is some news from the week, and it kind of fits the narrative of what I was mentioning there around someone who can impact the game, bring players out. When it's Morgan Rodgers, he's been superb, I think, for the last few months, and he is Boro's highest rated in terms of goal contributions this season. And it came out of nowhere on Thursday night that he was linked with a move with Aston Villa. Boro rejected an initial fee of £5 million. They've been rejected a second bid, but they're expected to go on for a third, which, in my opinion, I think we will accept at some point. But what are your guys' thoughts on the Rodgers deal? Because it just came from absolutely nowhere, Tom, and it was just a bit of a shock, right?
Oh, yeah, it definitely was. I'd literally just came back upstairs in my hotel room, having been on spa day with my girlfriend when that news kind of broke through, and I was like, I've just gone from being absolutely relaxed to like, I didn't want this to happen. This has ruined it. But yeah, after just 6 months, it is a bit of a weird one, especially because I think he's got still got quite a way to go in terms of his development. I don't think we're seeing anywhere near what Rodgers can do. He is obviously one of our, has been progressing really well. I would say one of our better players, but I still think there's a lot to come from him. And for Villa to supposedly be making him their top target this window, it's really confusing to me, because I'm just like he's nowhere near starting in your team just yet. So you literally are just paying for potential here, but at the same time, you can't be annoyed when we ask for a fee that kind of warrants that potential, especially after only 6 months of his contract.
What do you think as well, Dan? Obviously, he signed a 4-year deal in the summer, £1 million transfer fee. Like, Boro shouldn't really have to sell, but can you understand it if the right fee came along.
Yeah, if the right fee comes in from Villa, they have made a third bid per recent reports, because every player has their price. But I kind of agree with Tom. I understand that this is our model. We are bringing in players for low values, developing them, and then selling them on for a profit. That's how Boro are going to be sustainable in the long run. But it just feels very premature, doesn't it? I know that Brentford and Brighton are always mentioned in these conversations in regards to this new approach. And by the way, fans are going to have to get used to that, myself included, because it's very much new to us. But I don't think that Brighton or Brentford sold any of their key assets in 6 months of them being there. So, yeah, I mean, Boro will have a price on Morgan Rogers. It just feels very early, too soon to be like it did come out the blue, because he's got a 4-year contract, I think, and 6 months into it, he could potentially leave. Now, personally, I think it's a case of when rather than if, because Villa are very wealthy. They've got very wealthy investment at the top of the club. The tidbits of information that have come out say that Unai Emery is, what Tom mentioned there, priority target, which is very interesting within itself. And I think marrying those two together, I think it's only a matter of time before Villa stump up the cash that Boro probably want. But yeah, it's all very weird. You can't begrudge him if he wants to go, and apparently, he's keen on it. And I will mention this, it has been said that he will not force a move. He will not force a move, so that's good to hear. But he's a Birmingham lad, right? So it's going back closer to home. They're third in the Premier League. I know that he probably won't go in there and start straight away for them, but there's a big opportunity there. So you can't begrudge him if he's keen on it. But yeah, it just seems very premature for me.
How much would you accept if the fee, when the fee, obviously it's going to keep rising until Boro eventually accept, but what would be the right fee for you both to sell him at? Then what do you think? How much would you sell him for?
I think about maybe 8 million. I think you mentioning paying for potential. I think you can maybe get a little bit extra out of the deal if you go with that sort of approach. But for me, I'd say about 8 million. I don't know what Boro's valuation is, because nothing's really come out in the press to say what it is, but and what the bids have been from Villa. But I think about 8 million for me.
And Tom, get your Football Manager head on. If you could structure the deal, what would you structure it as?
Well, so for me, I've seen like a few kind of guesstimates from journalists where they're kind of saying people are suggesting that it'd be around 10 million. I think that's fair. You're, like I said earlier, you're not paying for his current ability. You are paying for potential. There's also the English tax on there as well. He helps towards registration rules, so you've got to consider that. I think, and the other thing you have to consider is that City have a sell-on clause in there as well. So, if that is like 20% or something like that, we'll probably still end up making around 8 million from the deal anyway, which I think in terms of the players we've sold, that would still put him towards some of like the top half of like our record fees received. I think it's only really recently where we've started selling players for, over 15 million or thereabouts. So you're still making about 8 times what you paid for him. If reports are to be believed that we did only pay City 1 million and agree to a sell-on clause. So I think 10 million's around a fair deal, and I think it would explain some of the links that have come out in the last week or so if we knew that Villa were going to do this. So both clubs apparently have a pretty decent relationship, so it's probably been floated. And yeah, I think from that, our recruitment now is probably good enough that we already have a list of replacements identified. I assume from what we've heard from Kieran Scott, from Carrick in the past, that we keep like an ongoing list of targets from every position. So it wouldn't surprise me if we accept something like 10 million and then we buy someone else who's like 2 or 3 million, and the cycle starts again.
Yeah, and look, that's the kind of club we're at the moment, and I think where we should be and how we should operate as well. Like we have to be a selling club now. That's how a lot of things become more sustainable. It allows you to spend more in the long run. all that kind of stuff. But for me on the deal, like, I'm not mad at Rodgers potentially going. It's not like I don't rate him. It's a good move for him. It's a good move for us if we were to get a really good fee for it. You can whack a sell-on clause if you want to. And if he does well, fantastic. You're going to get more money in the future. If he doesn't do well, you've still gained £8 or £9 million from a player that cost you peanuts in comparison to the transfer fees that are out there these days. And 6 months is early. It's very early. But credit to the coaching staff, to the recruitment team, just to identify it, see how he'd fit and develop him. But he still has a long, long way to go, and I'm just intrigued to see how he does. But you cannot blame a player for wanting to do that move as well, especially if you're from that area where they're currently playing. Like, you can't fault it. But I could potentially see a deal where he does come back to us for the remainder of the season. Whether we want that or not, I'm not too sure, because it's another loan player. You have to look again in the summer. But I think it's entirely up to us, I think, on that front. But I'm assuming, Danny, you can see. Well, could you see Boro replacing him? Or do you think he's gonna come back in the window?
I don't think it would be beneficial to have him back, because then we're just developing another team's player again, it becomes developing Villa's asset instead of ours. So I can't see. I think the potential, if he does go, Morgan Rodgers' replacement is already here in Finn Azaz. Not a direct replacement, but still somebody with that creativity, just in a different sort of way. I think with Finn Azaz, it's more vision, isn't it? And with Rodgers, I think he's still very intelligent, but it's that kind of physicality of being quick and strong. So yeah, I think that Azaz is kind of already there. But I hope he doesn't go, Rodgers, because he's still very much in the line of development, but we'll see.
Yeah, and we will, but I do feel fairly confident we'll see him in an Aston Villa shirt come the end of January. But let's move on. Let's move to everyone's favourite place, the Praise and Place. Yes, the Praise and Place, the only place where to give praise to a player, coach, staff member, Tom's fabulous haircut, the chip plan that we all go to now, and Dana, just for being healthy, just enough to do a podcast as well. But guys, who gets your place in the Praise and Place this week? Tom, would you like to go first?
I can do. I've only got 2 this week. I'm going Matt Clark and Marcus Forss. Clark, I just think he looks absolutely fantastic in our defence. When he first came back in, and it was very much he had to be come back in on very short notice against Leeds, and I think the general consensus was like, oh God, like any time he goes into anything physical, is he going to like snap in half or something like that? I forgot what I was going to say there, but it's like, you need to kind of wrap him in cotton wool, essentially, because, how long is he going to last? But I think he's proven that wrong, and he just looks so good in our defence. I think, for me, him and Van den Berg, I know you guys were having a discussion on this kind of last week on who do you pick in defence. For me, it's him and Van den Berg at centre-back if we're playing with 2 centre-backs. Because I think playing Clark on that left-hand side opens up that pass to Engel so much better, and he just looks so composed on the ball in defence. Looks like he's never been out. So, yeah, I've got to give praise to Matt Clark, and then Marcus Forss just for coming back in the last couple of weeks. 2 goals in 2 games. Hopefully he can get a 3rd one against Chelsea.
Yeah, absolutely. His goals per minute is absolutely fine. It's about 40 minutes since he's came back, since he hasn't played a full 90. And Dana, who's going to be in your place this week?
I'm going to keep it quick. I'm going to divert slightly and take up a different approach. I'm going to praise the goal that we scored. Both Rodgers' assist and then the finish from Marcus Forss. I think it was a very good goal, and what I would wanted to have seen more of from Boro yesterday. So yeah, I'm going to praise the equaliser, the way that it was constructed, the assist, and then the finish from our flying Finn, Marcus Forss.
Yeah, put that goal in the Louvre. And For me, I'm gonna probably go Hayden Hackney. I'm joking. He was garbage yesterday. It was one bad game in a long time.
He knew Newcastle were watching him. That's why.
Yeah, that's the reason why. Yeah, that's really reason.
Credit to me dad for that one.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jay. He can fix all the laptops and your devices. Just to give him a little shout out there. That'll cost you 50 quid as well. I'll go with probably Marcus Forss. I think Marcus Forss for coming back and scoring 2 and 2, super valuable to us, isn't he, Marcus? And just so nice to see him back in a Boro shirt, 'cause we've missed him on this podcast and as fans as well. It's always good for that. But let's move to everyone's second favorite part of the show, and it's trivia time now. I kept this question away from you over the last night, but I just thought it was quite a funny one to put in. And the question was around goalkeepers for Boro. Well, it's not really Boro related, but they are Boro keepers. So Ross Turnbull and Mark Schwarzer both played for Chelsea. If you're on Sky Sports, you completely forgot that he played for Middlesbrough over 300 times, Max Schwarzer, but he was known as the Chelsea goalkeeper. So give me this opinion of how many appearances did the player. So who played more appearances for Chelsea, Ross Turnbull or Mark Schwarzer? You get a bonus for getting the right number as well for the pair of them. But your time starts now. Yes, time is up. Time's up. I am going to go for all appearances as well, so it includes maybe some random ones like they might have done on tour. Too. But who played more games and how many did they play? Ross Turnbull, Max Schwarzer. Who would like to go first?
I will.
Quiet. Go on
and embarrass myself. I've gone that Turnbull, ignore the first one, that's last week's answer. I've gone Turnbull played more, and he played 22 games and Schwarzer played 5. And I think that that's so unbelievably wrong. It's untrue, but I'm going to say it with my chest. And if I'm wrong, then I'm very loudly wrong.
Okay. And then, Tom, what are you going to go for?
Well, I've gone for Schwarzer, and it's a total guess. I didn't even try and guess the appearances because I know that'd be badly wrong. I was looking at it and I just thought, surely like Schwarzer's the better keeper, so he would have played more. But then I can remember Turnbull playing for them in cup games. Turnbull got a Premier League winners medal despite barely playing. I was like, it's going to be like a trick question and it's going to be Schwarzer, so I guess that way.
Did he get a Champions League medal as well? Or am I like completely wrong on that, Ross Turnbull?
He is one of the most successful English goalkeepers of all time, Ross Turnbull.
Got a Champions League medal 2011, 2012. But the most prestigious award that he got was Middlesbrough Young Player of the Year 2007, 2008.
We'll let you go. You know, what more do you want in life than that one? But the answer, it is Ross Turnbull. He played 7 league games, but 19 games in total. For Chelsea, and Mark Schwarzer played 4 league games and 12 appearances in total. So Ross Turnbull is the winner, but it is still very, very close. But now it gives us it's primed just both for the Chelsea game this week. You know, we're Boro going to the second leg, leading 1-0 at Stamford Bridge. Dana, you are going, of course. How do you feel about it? Are you excited, nervous, not asked? How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm nervous. I've been nervous ever since I got the tickets, to be honest, because we are at an advantage, but I don't know how big of an advantage it is because it's only a goal and we are going to Stamford Bridge. And I just don't envisage Cole Palmer having a hat trick of misses again. I think that they will be more clinical. So I'm prepared for the worst, but I'm still hopeful. And even if we do end up getting beat, just incredibly proud of Boro. And I said it after the first leg, no matter what happens at Stamford Bridge, like they can't take that night away from us. So kind of, I know everyone says free hit with games like this, but it kind of still is again, I guess. And if we have the same result that we had yesterday, then we're through, aren't we? So Yeah, I'm just fingers crossed, toes crossed, everything crossed that we could get a good result. I'm excited, but I'm probably more nervous. And I'm also not looking forward to that journey there because that is going to be, oh God, it's just going to be long. And on the way back, if we do lose, it's going to be even longer. But come on, Boro, we can do it. We can do it.
Yeah, Dan, you're going to be you're going to absorb the famous chant of Chelsea, 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 maybe once or twice for the evening. And Tom, how are you feeling about it as well? Obviously, we are leading to some extent, but are you feeling excited, nervous, not
I'm
asked?
feeling
Just
exactly the same as I did before the first game, just like extremely calm to the point where I'm just like, like a casual kind of viewer on me at the moment, just like, he's not even asked. Like, I'm just like completely calm. First leg, as Dana said, they can never take that away from us. I've now seen Boro beat Chelsea in person for the first time in my life, so I'm very happy with that. You know, we're taking a 1-goal lead there. Who knows what can happen? I mean, obviously Cole Palmer missed those chances in the first leg, but let's not like disguise the fact that we gifted 2 of them to him, and Chelsea were absolutely dire. So if they play like that again, we're probably going to go through. But you know, if we go on to like lose this 2-0 or something like that, you still can't be that disappointed because we've already won the first leg. They can't take that away from us, and it's probably a fixture that we weren't expecting to even be in this position in anyway. So the fact that we are, and we've got something to take into the second leg, it's all you could really ask. Well, I mean, it's not all you could ask for. You could ask for 2-0 or 3-0, but you know, a win before we go into the second leg at Chelsea, and keeping a clean sheet as well. It's you know, an ideal situation we put ourselves in. I hope we can do it. I'd love to. I'd love to go to Wembley again. I've never seen a team that went a small win there, but obviously it's more the experience of the thing. So yeah, I really hope we can do it. It's just at the moment, it's just kind of like what will be will be. I'm not going to finish the second half of that, but
yeah. Do you think we can? No, Tom. You say you hope we can, but do you think we can?
I think we can, yeah. If Chelsea play like they did last time, we play like we did last time, then we're probably going to go through. But it really depends which Chelsea shows up this time.
Yeah. And what do you think, Dana? Can Boro do it?
I think so, but I do suspect it'll be a different game. And I do think that we will concede. But the thing is that the game state going into it is that they will need to attack us. And they will do that anyway because of their quality and the superiority that they have in that regard. But then Boro can catch them on the counter. And I do think that Rodgers and Jones in particular, and Forss's finishing, they're the 3 key players for me in this game. And Crooksy, if he comes on, happy birthday for yesterday, Matt Crooks. If he comes on, he's such a clutch player, isn't he, that we just need to make sure that we take our chances because I think we will get some. We just need to be clinical with them because I don't think we'll get an awful lot of them. But when we do get them, we need to take them. I think we can do it, but it's still a hope rather than a conclusive belief, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and look, I would start Crooksy on Tuesday just because it's something unusual for a Chelsea side to face against because they don't really play against people like Crooks really, and you know the amount of shithousery he caused in the first leg, like little moments here and there. I think it's just like it's a good player to have, and you know you've got your outlet of course with Rodgers there. You know we'll have Forss in the team if Jones plays, and fantastic, but I wouldn't mind seeing a Crooksy play on Tuesday as well. But it's in the balance. I'll ask for your predictions, but I feel a bit nervous when I talk about it now because like the first leg I wasn't asked at all. When we scored that second half and on, I was a mess. I couldn't watch it. I think it's mainly because I was just seeing how like Chelsea was set up, and I was like, oh my god, it just takes one good ball, and it just never came. So I was very stressed out. Matt was consoling me for a good 8 minutes or however long it was in that second half. But what's your predictions? If you had a gun at your head now, what would be your score prediction? Dana, do you want to go first on this one?
2-1 Chelsea, which would take it to extra time, wouldn't it?
So it depends, isn't it? Is it pens?
Is it? If it's straight to pens, Boro win on pens. Oh my god, if it goes to penalties, I do not think that I'll be able to stand up. I will need something significant to keep me calm. In fact, nothing would be able to keep me calm. I'd be an absolute wreck. I'm already a wreck, so God help me in this game. But 2-1 Chelsea, take it to pens, Boro win on pens.
And then you, Tom, what are you thinking?
I'm going 1-1, and I'm going Boro's equaliser coming quite late as well. Because I always think, going down the football conspiracy theory route here, I always think when there's a game on Sky Sports, I mean, they won't do it all the time, but there's always that dramatic moment and it's always like, oh, as if you could, like, as if this could be written, and like, yeah, you have written it. So, I just feel like Chelsea will be 1-0 up for most of the game. I think they'll score first half, be knocking on the door, and then like we'll hit them on the counter attack, and we'll get a goal from either Crooks or Forss.
Okay. I'm gonna go really left field here. Maybe, but I think Boro go to the bridge and win. I think there's just going to. I think there's just.
I also.
It's just there's just something about it where I feel that I think Chelsea will dominate, and I think they will score first. And yeah, it's not a bad thing if Chelsea score. I don't think it's a bad thing, because when the game was even at the Riverside, we did create chances and we created good moments, and I think we'll score to equalise. And I think there'll just be just a fluke moment, and we'll win it 2-1 at the bridge. Gets beat 7-0. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me as always. And to the listeners and viewers, if you give us your score predictions as well for Boro versus Chelsea in the comments, or tweet us as well at Boro_breakdown, or Facebook message or Instagram post, whatever you want to do, and let us know. But for right now, Boro, go and make history at the bridge. This has been the Boro Breakdown podcast, and that was like Boro Matchday Chatter in a pod. Boro Breakdown.